In order to get your PSAT score report, you should log into your dashboard through collegeboard.org. Once you do, you'll see a page similar to this. This is your home page in that dashboard. The most recent test score released will be at the top of the screen, so this might be your PSAT score report. For this student, it was the October 1st SAT, which they took on a special day, one day ahead because of their location. However, they did take the PSAT in fall of 2015, and since we're interested in the PSAT score report, let's click View Details to get that report. So as you can see, the report should load in the next screen. Now, each tab at the top for this report will give you details about the report, such as your scores for each section and overall, how you did on each test question in each section, and the various skills assessed based on your performance. All this information is available in one place, and that is the full score report. You should download that report to see all this information in one place by clicking Download Report at the top right here. Let's take a look at what this full report would look like. So in that report, you'll be able to find all the information that you would have in those other screens, but in a PDF file. You'll be able to see your total score, your score for the evidence-based reading and writing section, your score for the math section, as well as your scores on the skill areas assessed through your performance, what you scored for the National Merit Scholarship Competition, and how you did on every question for every section. So let's dig into this report a little more finely. When you're looking at the score section of the score report, you should note not only what your score is, like for this student it is 530 in the evidence-based reading and writing section, you should also note where that falls out of the scale. The scale you can find just to the right. The scale for this individual section is 160 to 760. If this student were to get 760, the student would have got basically a perfect score for the evidence-based reading and writing section. With a 530, it placed this student at 75th percentile. Now this is nationally representative percentile. So this is a percentile determined based on how College Board projects all students would have done on this test. It's not necessarily the percentile you got out of all students who took this exact test. So it's more an estimation of where you would fall among all prospective students just like you. In the math section, the student got a 560 on the same scale of 160 to 760, which placed this student at the 85th percentile. Now, although these scores are a little different, 530 to 560, they're also really close. The biggest difference between the 75th percentile and the 85th percentile is based on how students perform in the math section versus the evidence-based reading and writing section. They don't differ too much. 75th percentile and 85th percentile is still somewhat close. Just below your scores, you'll see a couple bars to give you an idea of where your skills are compared to the average student in America. If you're in the green, then you're above the benchmark, which is considered, again, average. This is kind of like a C, or a passing grade. And so this student with 530, when she was in the 11th grade, surpassed that passing grade. Right? 530 is in the green here. And then 560 also surpassed the passing grade, the average of 510. So 560 is also in the green. So below those bars you can see that red means you need to strengthen skills, which means that overall the PSAT is estimating that you're a little bit behind in the skills you would need to succeed in school and thus also in college. It's assuming that you're going to stick with school throughout the rest of the year and then the next year as well as a senior, and it's estimating based on your performance that you would need to improve, study harder, perhaps get some extra help after school or from your teachers. And then if you're in the yellow, you still want to do a little bit better. This is, again, approaching the estimated benchmark of a passing grade. However, you might not need as much help as somebody who is in the red. And again, if you're in the green, then you're doing really well. However, you might ask yourself, do these scores represent scores that I need to get into the colleges I want to? In addition to seeing whether you would be college ready based on your skill assessment, you should also keep in mind that these scores are a projection of what you would get on the SAT. The PSAT and SAT are on the same scale, according to College Board, so this 1090 is a projection of what this student would get on an actual full SAT. So if 1090 were the student's goal, then the student's in great shape. However, if colleges the student wanted to apply to had higher scores, the student would need to study, practice, perhaps even get some tutoring to boost that score higher, even though the student is in the green in both of those sections. Now let's take a look at these subscores here, because College Board is trying to provide more information to students, parents, teachers, and even colleges with these score reports. So, yeah, let's dive in. Command of evidence is one type of skill. Now, this is with the reading section. Command of evidence has to do with your ability to use evidence from the passage to make conclusions or deductions and then choose the right answer. Words in context are those questions in which you have to basically define a word or phrase by picking the right answer, the right definition of that word or phrase. And you can find that definition using the context of the passage. So these are some examples of the skills that the test tries to categorize throughout its test questions. Heart of algebra is basically a bunch of algebra skills that you might find in the test questions. Passport to Advanced Math is another set or category of skills, math skills, that you'll find in the math section. So for most of you, this doesn't necessarily mean much. However, you'll find the National Merit Scholarship Corporation's Selection Index on the next page of your score report. Now, this student scored a 162 on that index. How this number is generated is the College Board creates the scale for the overall score. And the National Merit Scholarship Corporation takes that scale and applies it to their own index of numbers, which is basically another scale. Where a student falls on this index determines whether that student is eligible for special scholarship programs and a special competition to basically either become a National Merit Scholarship finalist or a National Merit Scholarship winner. And if you win this competition, you get a lot of commendations in addition to scholarships, and colleges are very impressed by that honor. However, less than 1% of the nation actually gets to the competition, and even less people make it to being winners in that competition. So that's what this number means. However, for more than 99% of you, it won't necessarily mean much. Now, in addition to getting an overall assessment from the test on where the student stands in reading, writing, and math, the test also likes to give some sort of stock suggestions about how to improve for, say, the reading section. So you can see that these comments here are cherry-picked from a selection of comments that the test thinks applies to this student. So there are a lot of different comments that the test might give. However, it's going to try to find some that match how the student performed. You can see the same for writing and math. You can see it for your own test as well. Some of the tips are helpful, at least good to get an awareness of where you were weaker in terms of which categories you performed worse in. However, to see more details about that, you should just check out the next page, which gives you, again, every single question on the test that you took. Now you can see how you did in certain subscores that we saw before, like command of evidence, or words in context, or passport to advanced math, by using this legend down here. So command of evidence is represented by COE, that abbreviation. If you go to the reading section, every time you see COE, you'll know that this is a command of evidence question. If you have a copy of the PSAT that you took, you can go back and look at those questions and see, oh, okay, I missed question number 3 because my answer was A, when the correct answer was C, and this was a command of evidence question. It also happened to be a really hard question because the difficulty is 1, 2, 3. That's the highest difficulty. And if I see that I missed other command of evidence questions like 18, COE, high difficulty, I chose A when the correct answer was B, I know that I need to work on my command of evidence skill. You can see the same here with question 21, a medium level question. Nonetheless, command of evidence, still missed it. You can also do the same with WIC, or words in context. We can see that there are some of those in here. This is a hard one, 1, 2, 3, difficulty. Words in context, and yep, missed that one too. So might need to work on the words in context and command of evidence in addition to just beefing up the reading skills. Cross-test score. So this HSS, so this cross-test score section shows you which passages you were working on. This HSS represents the analysis in history and social studies cross-test score, meaning this passage was most likely a social science passage. And this student did really well in that passage. All these check marks mean, hey, got a lot of questions right. However, when it comes to SCI, or analysis in science, some more science-oriented passages, the students seem to falter a little bit. Now, we know ways at Score Beyond with our tutoring programs how to get around being quote-unquote bad at science passages or quote-unquote bad at history or social science passages because the passages are all kind of the same when it comes to how you should approach them, even if they have different subject matter like history or science. So for this student, my guess would be that she doesn't like science much or finds it harder to understand or comprehend in a time setting. So that's something we would work on. Now you can also see In the writing and language section, the same sort of breakdown. And the subscores you can find at the bottom of the page as well. You can do so for math as well. So one thing to note about the math, however, is notice the difficulty with the reading and writing was kind of jumbled, right? You have some hard questions at the beginning, you have some medium questions sprinkled throughout. Sometimes there is an easier question somewhere in the middle. However, in the math, it usually goes easy, medium, hard. So here's test tip number 1. If you're going to do the math section of the SAT or PSAT, the easy questions come first, and the hardest questions usually come last, right? And then with the grid-in questions, they usually start easy, however they end hard. In this case, they were all hard for this PSAT. So this is a general organizing principle that the SAT likes to use, and they use it on the PSAT as well. So I'll give you a hint. Hard questions are hard for a reason. You shouldn't skip over easy and medium questions in order to just spend all your time on the hards, because they're worth the same points. So if you get question 1 right, that's worth as much as getting question 26 right. However, question 1 is easier to get right. So yeah, make sure that you don't race through these in order to spend 15 minutes or whatever on these questions back here. So that is a more fine breakdown of what you can find from your PSAT score report. Now, how can you use this? Why is this important? Well, as I said earlier, the PSAT and the SAT are on the same scale. So the score you get on the PSAT is a projection of what you will get on the SAT if nothing changes. If you do no studying whatsoever and you just keep up your same habits in school, then you're likely to get a score like you get on the PSAT. However, if you do better in school, if you apply yourself more, study more, review your mistakes more from tests or even in writing or reading, then you should improve. Also, if you were to do some test prep and get more exposure to the test questions, their format, how the test likes to trick you, and what you can do to get around that, then you will also improve. So this is a projection of what you will get on the SAT given your skill levels now. However, you can improve your skill levels between the PSAT and when you take the SAT. If you want to improve a ton, you might consider getting a tutor to help you improve your weakest skills sooner. That way you can see dividends from that improvement on your next test. However, at the end of the day, it is going to take execution on your part. You have to take the test, just as you had to take the PSAT. No one else is going to take it for you, and so it's up to you to improve those skills, no matter which method you use to do it. Now, you can also use this PSAT and its score projections to help you determine how far you are away from the score requirements of the colleges you want to go to. And if you don't even know what schools you want to go to, perhaps this score can give you a glimpse at the range of schools you should be looking at. On average, students don't improve their scores wildly, like 500 points. Or in this case, if this student got a 1090 and the maximum score on the SAT is a 1600, yeah, this student might not get a 1590. It's really, really hard to get that. Number one, less than 1% of the nation gets a 1590 or higher. And then number two, improving 500 points is a tall order. Just based on the statistics of the test, that's not likely seen. However, improving 200 points, totally possible. Improving even 300 points, that's been done before as well with a lot of hard work, studying, and supplemental tutoring. So this student who got a 1090 might look at this score, look at the colleges she's interested in, and see, okay, I actually need to get a 1200 in order to get into these schools, so I need to improve by 110 points. So this score here not only shows you how much work you need to do in terms of test prep in order to improve your score, it gives you an idea of which schools you should be looking at, or whether you should consider different schools based on the score range that you're in. Now, these subscores, as we went over them before, are generally helpful. However, knowing that you're in the yellow when it comes to command and evidence, or words in context, or passport to advanced math, not really that helpful. It's not clear what you need to do in order to improve those skills, at least on this test. You might try to work harder in algebra in school, or in reading or English class in school, but it's unclear how that correlates directly. Furthermore, when you get these suggestions on how to improve, it's still not clear exactly how you're supposed to apply these suggestions. So what I would recommend is going to these questions and seeing which ones you got wrong, and trying to get a copy of the PSAT to go back and see, okay, what was the question asking? What did the passage tell me? Why was my answer wrong? Why was the right answer right? That way you can see with a direct application of the skill listed, in this case command of evidence for number 3, you can see what went wrong and what command of evidence actually means. What does that question actually ask me to do? So I would recommend using it as a study tool as much as a projection of where you would be on the SAT, and thus what you should be thinking about when it comes to college admissions. Those are the primary aspects of the PSAT score report that makes it useful in terms of what you should do next. It's not just a reflection of how you did on that one day, it's also a projection of how you might do in the future when it comes to the SAT, but then also in your own studies at school. Hopefully you found this video useful, and if you have any clarifications or questions that you'd like us to help you with, feel free to reach out to us at ScoreBeyond. Thanks for watching.